Hello, everybody. So, welcome to Beyond the Stars Astrology. I am Joachim, your host, and in this video, we will discuss chapter 2 of the medical astrology course, where I will mainly focus on the elements. Now, if you feel like you are still behind in astrology or some concepts are not quite clear, it is most likely that you are too much focusing on planets in houses, planets in signs, or planets in nakshatras without really knowing what the planets or the grahas really are. And therefore, this course in the basics of medical astrology will be very suitable because I will start from the beginning up to more advanced concepts into the medical science, where we then dive deeply into the organs and different systems of the body related to those planets. Now, the five elements are also known as the Pancha Tattvas, and this is important in astrology. Pancha means five, and Tattva means the truth or the true essence. So the Pancha Tattvas are the five basic truths or forces that create everything in the universe, and even the planets known as the grahas are influenced by these five elements, as explained in ancient texts as the Surya Sudanta. So, in this system, Mars will be connected to fire, Mercury to earth, Jupiter to ether or the space, and Venus to water, and Saturn to air. So, keep in mind, Sun and Moon are not so much connected to the elements, because Sun is more representing the self or the ego, while the moon represents the individual consciousness. So the Pancha Tattvas are created by God Himself and are considered to be part of God's form when He is present in the universe or in the world, and is also related to the universal form. So each of the five elements has then a specific job, and therefore each of the planets or the grahas has its own responsibilities too. So these roles are specifically explained in another ancient text called the Srimad Bhagavatam, where Kapila Muni is instructing his mother Devahuti in Canto 3, and from chapter 26, text 34 to 46, you will find a really nice explanation of how the universal form into the three gunas, into the elements, creates material nature. So it's a very good read to go into that scripture. So let's start with ether, which is represented by Jupiter, and ether is the space where that creation is happening. So it gives room for everything to exist. Ether also holds the prana or the life energy or the life force that keeps everything alive. And because of this, Jupiter is known as the Jiva, meaning life. So then we have the air element after the ether, and this is represented by Saturn. And air is responsible for movement and change. It shakes up and moves things, causing them to separate and become different. So, since air causes things to move, Saturn rules over all things that mix, shake, or separate. And so air also carries the senses like sound, touch, color, taste, and smell. And because of this, Saturn is connected to how the senses work in the body, especially through the nervous system. And air makes the senses very active by carrying life energy through Saturn. So from Jupiter, we go to Saturn. So then we have Mars, and representing fire, and fire brings light and color and heat. And Mars, the planet of fire, is connected to things like projectors and lights that create brightness. Fire also heats things up, helping them to ripen and become very useful. And this is why Mars is linked to heaters and dryers, cooking systems. And fire also from the stomach creates hunger and thirst. So people with a strong Mars tend to feel hungry a lot often and have fast metabolism. And then we come to the element of water, which is represented by Venus. And water moistens and binds things together. So Venus is the planet of water, rules over things, not the moon, by the way. It is Venus, and we will be coming to that a little bit later. So Venus then rules over things like lotions, lubricants, and glues. Water also cools things down, which is why Venus is linked to air conditioners, refrigerators, and the sweat that cools our body. So water keeps life going by maintaining the prana, the life force, and because of this, Venus is associated with foods and nourishment. And then finally, we come to the earth element, Mercury, which is responsible for making things then very solid and real. Mercury, the planet of Earth, is important for making things come to life in a concrete, physical way. So this is Mercury's duty. So Earth gives stability. So Mercury is connected to foundations, anything that supports or holds something up, like the ground or any base. Mercury also rules over jars and containers which are used to hold other things, and Earth helps us to see real quality of things. So Mercury helps us understand what is truly good or valuable. So these pancha tattvas, the five truths or the five elements, are the building blocks of the universe. Each element has a planet that represents it. This is very important in medical astrology, and together they explain how the universe also functions in astrology. So then we come to the five, from the five elements into the five senses. And the five senses are also closely linked to the five elements in especially medical astrology. And each element has a specific sense connected to it. And sorry, I just had a phone call here. I will have to put my sound off. So these senses are connected to a planet, and each planet rules then, of course, one of our senses. And these senses are called gyanendriyas, meaning organs of knowledge, because they help us gain important knowledge for our growth and our survival. So ether, again, Jupiter is connected to hearing. Ether allows us to hear and gain knowledge through sound. So air, Saturn, is then related to touch. Air helps us feel and understand things through touch. Fire, Mars, is, like we explained, sight, or and fire allows us to see and learn from colors or what we observe. Then water, Venus, is related to tastes, which helps us understand different flavors. And then Earth, Mercury, related to smell and allows us to smell and acquire knowledge through different odors. So all those spiritual, religious, and astrological texts sometimes warn about overindulging with the senses. These senses serve an important purpose. So they help us learn and grow, which is why they are called Gyanendriyas, organs that gives us knowledge. So the thing is that we should not overindulge in each one of these senses too much, but we should be able to utilize them as they are meant to be utilized. So the senses are also not only physical, they can also be situated on the astral level related to spirit and soul and our spiritual body. So people who are physically sensitive, also some of them use their astral senses to acquire knowledge in different ways. And then we see different psychics. For example, some people can hear things that others don't, see things that others don't see, or even experience psychic tastes and smell in the spiritual realm when Radharani is cooking for Krishna, for example. So in Hindu text, the smells of spirits are mentioned, which can be sensed by people who have psychic abilities. So if someone has trouble with one of their senses, it's because the corresponding planet is affected. So if your hearing is poor, Jupiter will be afflicted in the birth chart, probably with a troublesome deep tadi avashta and great enemy sign, for example. If the sense of touch is weak, Saturn will be afflicted. If your sight is affected, Mars is afflicted. If your taste is poor, Venus will be afflicted. If your smell is weak, Mercury will be afflicted. So, on the other hand, if one of these planets is strong, a person may have heightened sense related to that planet. So, it could be operating in a very strong way. So, interestingly, the relationship between the senses and planets shows up in our everyday language also. So, when something sounds intelligent or wise or appeals to our understanding, we say that sounds good. So, that is related to Jupiter. When something is difficult, we describe it as this is hard, reflecting the sense of touch towards Saturn. When we didn't notice a danger, we say we didn't see it coming, which is then Mars related to sight. And when we find something desirable, we say, oh, this is, you have a good taste, for example, and this is related to Venus. And when something seems suspicious, we say there's a smell to it, or this smells funny, and this is then related to Mercury. So each sense, therefore, is tied to both our physical and mental understanding of the world, even the astral realm, influenced by the planets that rule them. So then we have the five organs of action, also called the karmendriyas, represent the active or more rajastic energy of the panchatattvas, or the five elements. So these are five powers that allows us to take action in the world. So each element is connected to a specific type of action, with its power then focused in certain parts of your body. So then we have fire, which is Mars, which represents motion, and the primary power is in the feet. Now you have to understand that the feet is not Mars, but it is the energy of motion that is represented by Mars, and which then eventually controls body movement. So if Mars is afflicted in your birth chart, you may struggle with moving around or have certain physical limitations. Now, with the Earth, which is then represented by Mercury, that represents excretion. Now, the power is in the back of the body, but Mercury controls all the organs that help the body remove the waste. So, if Mercury is afflicted, you may have problems with excretion. Now, keep in mind that this is the power behind the excretion, because as we see in astrology, Saturn governs excretion itself by letting go and dealing with the waste of the body, but Mercury is the energy behind that. Then we come to ether, which is represented by Jupiter, and this is sound, and this primary power is in the vocal cords. So Jupiter is actually behind creation of sound, but Mercury helps turn the sound into speech. So if your Jupiter is afflicted in your birth chart, you may have difficulty producing good sounds. And if Mercury is afflicted, you may have certain speech uh, problems also. Now, water and Venus is related to generation, and the primary power is then in the sexual organs. Now, Venus is responsible for reproduction, regeneration, meaning it helps in both creating life and rebuilding the body's tissues. So, if Venus is afflicted, you may have a low vitality, struggle to reproduce, or face difficulties in healing and body repair. Now, keep in mind, Venus is the energy behind that, and it is actually in the chart, it is Jupiter that is representing generation. Now, air, Saturn is related to manual skill. So the primary power is in the hands, but Saturn controls all types of manual skill and precision. So if Saturn is afflicted in your chart, you may struggle with fine motor skills or have difficulty using hands for delicate tasks. Now it's important again to note that the organs of action refer to the power behind the actions itself, not just the physical body parts. So, for example, Mars does not control the feet, but rather the power of motion, which is most concentrated in the feet. So, the word Indriya means also power. So, these organs are really the energies that enable us to take action. Furthermore, the five objects of the senses, also known as tanmatras, represent the tamasic, obscuring qualities of the five elements. So again, ether and Jupiter, which is related to sound, we experience through hearing. Air, Saturn, touch, we experience the object is tangibility, and fire Mars, which is then sight, and is the object will be the colors that we see, which we then experience through seeing. Water and Venus in taste, so the object is the savior itself, which is experienced through taste. And then Earth, Mercury, the smell, the object is the odor, which is experienced through smell. So all of this is correlated. So these sense objects interact with the senses through the organs of actions to create experiences in the physical world and to satisfy the desires of our heart in this world. So the purpose of the senses, the organs of actions, and the sense objects is to fulfill the desires that we have. So our individual consciousness, symbolized by the moon in astrology, wants to experience the universe but cannot grasp it all in once. So this inability creates a desire. So when a desire is born, the universe kind of aligns itself to help you fulfill your desire. So once the desire is fulfilled, our consciousness returns to a state of peace and joy. However, many people experience unfulfilled desires due to worries or fears or lack of confidence. So, when desires are not fulfilled, they keep piling up, leading to a constant restlessness. And this creates a cycle where one's unfulfilled desires is followed by another unfulfilled desire, leaving you in a state of dissatisfaction and unhappiness. Over time, this can even result in poor health, and one can get serious health issues. So, at death, a soul full of unfulfilled desires must be reborn in another body than to try to fulfill them. So it's important for a person to focus more on one desire at a time with full attention and full confidence. So when someone concentrates fully on achieving one single goal, the universe helps you to fulfill that desire, bringing a sense of peace and happiness. And this focus allows you to return to your natural state of well being. So, on the other hand, if a person tries to fulfill too many desires at once without giving any one of them proper attention, none of the desires will be fully satisfied, and as a result, you will remain restless and unable to experience inner peace. So each form of matter contains the qualities of sound, touch, color, tastes, and smell, though in different proportions. So everything in the material world is created from these five elements, and then the planets are responsible for producing all of the experiences that we have. So keep in mind the sun and the moon, representing the self or the ego and consciousness, are the ones that experience these creations. And so the five other planets, besides Rahu and Ketu, are related to those five elements. So by understanding the connection between the elements, the senses, and desires, you can bring your life more intentionally and bring yourself closer to peace and fulfillment. Now, the generative cycle of these five planets. So we have ether, which is represented by Jupiter, representing our faith, wisdom, purpose, and fulfillment. So when faith is present, everything has a meaning in life. So if your Jupiter is strong, that is already a very good starting point. Then we have air, which is represented by Saturn, represents then our sense of duty and responsibility, which follows naturally when one is wise. Now then you have fire, which is represented by Mars, representing discipline and meaningful actions as you are doing your duty, which is then guided by Saturn as a sense of having duty. So they are very closely related to each other. Then you have water, which is represented by Venus, representing the fulfillment or the satisfaction that comes from disciplined activity and achieving your desires. And then you have Earth, which is represented by Mercury, is representing then security and accomplishment, which arises when your desires are fulfilled. And this is the generative cycle. So, after the accomplishment of your goals and your desire, which is Earth and Mercury, a new cycle begins with a deeper sense of purpose, which is Ether and Jupiter. So, we actually going from Jupiter to Mercury. Now, when there are imbalances in the cycle, for example, when one planet is weak in a negative avasta, it can disturb the whole cycle. So if you start with a weak Jupiter in your chart, there will be kind of a lack of faith or purpose affecting Saturn, leading to poor responsibility or a sense of being always short or lacking. When Saturn is weak, a poor sense of duty will be affecting Mars, leading to unfocused energy and wasted effort. When Mars is weak, without disciplined actions, Venus cannot fulfill desires, leaving many goals unmet. And when Venus is weak, unfulfilled desires lead to lust or addiction, disrupting Mercury's sense of accomplishment. And when Mercury is weak in the chart, poor organization and attention to detail makes it hard for Jupiter to focus on greater purposes. So that's what we have right now in relationship with Jupiter transiting through tropical Gemini. Jupiter there is in a great enemy condition. So this you can check in my previous video how this will affect in great detail actually. Now, when there is strength in the cycle, on the other hand, if a graha in your chart is very strong, it strengthens the next planet in the cycle. So, a strong Jupiter, a strong sense of purpose brings meaning, making Saturn's duties easier to fulfill. So, strong Saturn, a healthy sense of responsibility, brings focus and patience to Mars, promoting disciplined action. When Mars is strong, you will have a balanced willpower, leading to a strong character, helping Venus provide internal and external satisfaction. And when Venus is strong in your chart, you will have fulfilling desires, leaving a sense of calm, empowering Mercury to be organized and successful. And when Mercury is strong, you will have good organization, allowing Jupiter to focus on higher purposes without distractions and ultimately leading to moksha in the Vedic philosophy. So that was it for this chapter. Keep in mind, this is really important to understand how these planets are operating in the chart, how they're relating to the five elements to the senses, the sense object, and so on. And eventually, in the next chapters, we will gradually go deeper into the physical body, where we will then, in great detail, see how it affects different organ parts, different body systems, and also the glands. So, thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next recording.